Perry, I know that you wear a couple of different hats. One, obviously, in terms of your business, but also then very deeply involved in the SDA Alliance. Let's get your perspective on some of the things that Melanie's just mentioned, some of these disruptions. Can you just unpack exactly what they are and ultimately what they've meant for both, participants, but also then the development industry and the property industry seeking to roll out SDA?
Yeah, so when I became an SDA participant and provider about maybe 2 years ago now, it was much more sort of a streamlined sort of process and much easier to sort of navigate yourself through the system. Now we're experiencing some outcomes for people that haven't been anticipated. So from a participant's point of view, people were getting shared housing outcomes instead of independent living outcomes. For example, that was one of the major sort of hurdles we've faced in the last maybe 6 months. So for people listening, for someone like myself who has a high-level spinal injury, I've lived on my preference is to live on my own, not to share a house with other people with disabilities. And I guess that goes for other people out there, everyday people on the street. You don't necessarily want to share with people just because you have something in common, like a disability. You're more likely to share with family, friends, all those sort of things. So the old legacy stock that Layla was talking about in the intro has traditionally been group homes. And we're moving away from the old group home model into this new world of SDA, which is national infrastructure that we're developing over the next however many years, so that we have independent outcomes for people, we have shared outcomes for people, we have a multitude of different housing styles and opportunities for people. So, developers need to really understand the different criteria and the different models, and then understand how they work on the ground for people like myself.
And so, Perry, what's been the broader motivations then in terms of changing some of these rules of racing from the agency's point of view? Has it been sort of a funding issue? Can you give us some context in terms of why some of these changes are occurring?
Yeah, the agency have been throwing around terms like scheme sustainability, which is understandable. Look, we're all taxpayers, so we need to be mindful that we need this wonderful scheme. I live in SDA and it's changed my life, so I'm a massive advocate for it, and I want to see it survive, but at the same time it's got to be sustainable. So I think the major thing was the agency were new to this, which might sound funny, but it was a new policy, it was a new scheme, and unless you've sort of lived in disability housing or come from the sector, you probably don't know that much about it. So forgive me, and we're working collaboratively, as Mel said, with the agency, and we're working alongside them very closely. Some of the bureaucrats didn't really understand as well as maybe they should have what we were trying to do and how it should be implemented. So we're all going through a learning process, I would say, is the best way to explain it. And we'll get to a point where we have a clear road ahead. It's just taken a little while to sort of woo back on what was happening so that we can make sure that when we roll this out, we're rolling it out properly and it's not going to be a disaster in a sense.
Just tell us about Accessible Homes Australia. What are you doing, and I guess how are you approaching it a bit differently to perhaps others in the broader marketplace?
Yeah, we're unique in the aspect that I was a participant. So we use my home, my own home as our test pilot to make sure we understood what it was, what we needed to do, how the benefits worked, because until you sort of, go through an accessible home or see an SDA home, you don't really appreciate what it is that they do. Like my house has backup power, incredible assistive technology, all these features, wide open hallways, doorways, door openers, these things that, are life-changing for someone who has no physical capability. So it's a must-see experience to go through a home and understand what the benefits are. So that was sort of the driver for me, was saying, well, this is not easy. It's not straightforward in terms of design and understanding the markets. And that was one of the drivers for me to set up accessible homes with our co-directors. And, we're now sort of being very slowly in our approach. We're trying to understand where the demand is before we roll out new projects. We're teaming up with providers, still providers, as Mel suggested, but also looking at things. The Housing Hub, which the Summer Foundation has been a great, advocate for and driver of, helps us understand where people want to live and what they're looking for. So there are tools out there to help try and understand the market, but it's taking time to get those tools out there, to understand the demand. And the other thing is, it's going to take years to develop housing stock. If you start a project today, it'll probably take the best part of 2 years to see it occupied. So it's a long journey. You've got to be willing to stay it out and have the fortitude to see it through.